All right, so welcome everybody to our Success with Midterms workshop. So SSS and PALS has paired up to, bring you the best tips and tricks that you can do to make sure that you are successful with your midterms along with your other exams as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. So jump into that next slide. My name is Rachel, and I serve as the advisor for the SSS program. So that stands for Student Support Services, and we are in the Office of Trio Programs over in the Union. I have Latricia here, who is our director of our program. Austin is on the call as well. He's one of our tutor mentors. And then I see that we have a couple SSS students in the call with us today, so welcome. And I will let Kristen go ahead and introduce ourselves too.
Hi, my name's Kristen. I'm from the PALS office, which is Peer Advising, Learning, and Success. We are located in the University Center within the START office. I just want to thank you all for coming out here today, and I'm excited to give this presentation and help you guys with your midterms.
Yes, so we are all excited that you guys are here today. Before we jump in though, we wanted to get a quick gauge of our audience today. So on the screen here, you can kind of see a little question at the bottom that says, which describes you best? Are you somebody who has never taken a college class before? So are you an incoming freshman? Have you ever taken dual enrollment classes before? Are you going into your second year or more at UM-Dearborn? Or if none of those kind of fit you, who are you? Feel free to use the chat or unmute.
I can go first. So my name is Shayla, and this is my second year here at UM-Dearborn.
Yay, welcome Shayla.
Welcome. I figured I could share as well. I am a student here on campus, and this is my third and final year at UM-Dearborn, and so I'm excited to be here with all of you. Do we have anyone else who wants to share? You can use the chat if you don't want to use your mic. That's okay too. Ooh, another second year transfers. Second. So we seem to have a lot of second years here. Good, you guys got it down a little bit. We're excited to have you.
I'll chime in too. I'm Allie, and I work with the PALS program. I'm also an advisor in the START office, and I'm excited to be here with y'all.
All righty. I think we have a few more people trickling in as we go. So just for those who just came in, welcome to Success with Midterms. This is being hosted by the SSS Trio program and by PALS, and we are excited to have you here today. If you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to just, pop up and ask it. This is very informal. Just go for it. All right, so a brief overview of today's session. So today we are going to talk about what it means to be a successful student in college in terms of exams. And in order to do that, you have to prepare for your exams. So we're going to talk about a few things you can do to prepare, such as knowing your learning styles, some study skills and tips, and some resources you have here on campus. We're going to talk about taking the actual test, dealing with test anxiety and what to do and not to do on the day of the test. And we are going to be reflecting on your test. So this will be after you take your test, and what is metacognition and how you can use it to your advantage. All right, so first off, we're going to be talking about learning styles. So how do you learn? To successfully study, you have to know how it is you learn, and everyone learns differently. But only when you know your personal learning style will you be able to develop effective study strategies that will help you understand material. So on the left side of the screen, we have kind of three traditional learning styles. These include auditory learning, visual learning, and tactical or kinesthetic learning. These are the ones that most people hear about when they know the word learning styles. But not everyone fits into just three categories, and there is more and more research being done on every day, and they're starting to develop all these other subcategories of the major three, and those are some of the things you see here on the right. So we have diverging learning, assimilating merging, converging, and accommodating. So there's all these combinations of auditory, visual, tactical. Some of them involve group work, some of them are more independent, And all these different learning styles can be completely unique. You can fit in one, you can fit in 20. You don't have to fit in just one. These are just some samples, but you have to kind of get an idea of how you learn in order to be successful in studying. So what style is right for you? Your past learning informs your future learning. So what has helped you in the past? Do you have anyone who wants to throw something out there, just something they use for studying? I, for one, I'm taking an analytical chem class and I have a test tomorrow and I'm doing practice problems. Anyone do that? Again, you can use the chat too if you don't want to. And it's okay to repeat something that's up here on the screen.
I use flashcards and I quiz myself.
Oh, flashcards, wonderful. And quizzing yourself. That's perfect. Those are great ones. I also use flashcards, and you can use those either the good old paper ones, or they have a lot of online resources for those too. So good. Knowing what helps you learn can help inform how you will learn in the future. So your learning style is a unique strength to yourself, and you got to know how to use it. So one thing to keep in mind in doing this is that your learning style will change and adapt. So your learning style is not something that's static throughout your entire life. It is going to be constantly changing, and this will change over time. It will change with different subjects. For instance, I talked about doing practice problems for chemistry. That's not the same way I study for my comp class that I'm in. Completely different subjects, I study different ways for it, and both of those work for me. And it's going to change maybe based on the instructor too. So your learning style, it's not just something static, it's something that's going to change over time. But knowing how you learn can really help you be effective in your studies. All right, and the next topic we're going to talk about is study skills and tips. I think I'm leaving this off to either Austin.
Yep. So I would just like to ask this basic question to the audience. So using the annotate feature on Zoom, or you could also just use the chat or unmute, what are some study skills that you personally use for your classes? So a lot of great ones already mentioned, flashcards, stuff like that. But what other things do you use for your classes to help you succeed? I see read notes out loud in the chat. That's a great one. Yes. Always good to hear it out loud. It sounds a lot different in your head.
Oh.
Color coding notes using highlighters. Okay. So that way when you take the test, you associate one color with one concept. That's a great way to do it. Forming study groups, especially in a virtual format. If you have virtual classes, study groups are great. Having group chats, stuff like that. But study groups are a great way to look at material differently. Diagrams, that's a great one. Visual concepts, like the diagrams. Yes, visual concepts. I'm a visual learner myself, so I love seeing things in front of me, and I grasp concepts better when they're in front of me in diagrams or in written form. Always a great way for me personally to learn. Listening to lectures over again. Yep, don't just listen to it once and then never come back to it. Awesome, great ideas. Anyone else have anything else before we move on? Well, these are all great ideas. All these are great study skills, especially for different types of learners as well. So I notice there's visual concept, but there's also auditory concepts. So reading notes out loud. If you learn better hearing things, you're going to read your notes out loud because you process it better rather than looking at a diagram. So those are great examples. So I'll hand it back over to further discuss this in more detail.
All right, so next we're going to talk about some good rules to cover when studying. So these are basically some tips and tricks. So one of these is using recall, and someone even just mentioned this on the previous page, rereading your notes. But recall is after you read a page, be able to look away and kind of summarize the main ideals. So if you can recall things without necessarily looking at your notes, repeat them without doing that, that's a good way to know you know the material. Also, test yourself on everything all the time. Someone was talking about on the previous slide, testing themselves on materials. And this is a great thing that you can do anywhere. You can do it at the grocery store. You can do it while you're driving. Just ask yourself some of the questions and see if you can come up with the answers. You can also chunk your problems. Chunking is a great way to break down problems into their simpler parts so you can accomplish everything. Sometimes problems can be very large and confusing, but if you break them up and work on the individual segments, it's a lot easier. Spread out your learning. Your brain is a muscle. You cannot work out for 10 hours straight, so why would you try studying for 10 hours straight? It's not going to work. So make sure you leave breaks for your brain. Only study for maybe a half hour at a time. Give it some time to rest in between study sessions. Mix it up. Work on different types of problems throughout your study. So maybe you're going to do, I don't know, chem for 20 minutes, then maybe switch over to math for a half hour. Switch up your brain. Your brain doesn't want to do the same thing all the time. Continuing our list, we also have take breaks. So this goes back to your brain being a muscle, right? You would not run for 10 hours straight. So don't cram the night before a test 10 hours straight. That's not healthy for your brain and it's not going to work very well. Use explanatory questioning and simple analogies. Think to yourself, how can I explain this to someone else? So a great way to know if you understand the materials is if you could teach it to someone else. Can you maybe get with a classmate or a peer and see if you can explain the material to them? If you can teach, you'll probably know it very well. Focus. Give yourself time to study without unnecessary distractions. Number one distraction in our lives, I'm holding it up to the camera right now, it's a phone. We have them on us all the time. Set up a study space that's phone-free, distraction-free. Give yourself the time and space you need to study effectively. On number 9 on the list, we have start with the hardest thing first. Oftentimes, we have a lot of anxiety about maybe studying or completing homework. If you do the most difficult thing on that list first, it's all going to be downhill from there. Get it done and over with, and the rest will come easy. And lastly, we have stay motivated. Always remember why you're in school. I know sometimes it's hard and it seems hopeless. You get really into these pits of despair, as my mom liked to call them. But remember why you're here in school, and this will help you persevere and continue on your academic studies. All right, and now I got some bonus tips from the SSS.
Yeah, so I absolutely loved the 10 study tips that you had just shared, Kristen, because when I was a student at UM-Dearborn and even in my master's program, I definitely used a lot of those, especially the whole distraction thing. I had to come up with an area that truly was, distraction free and being able to focus on what I needed to do. So thank you for sharing those. Some bonus tips that we from the SSS program wanted to share too is some actually from our staff that we found that we do really or we find really helpful. And the first one is, splitting your notes into 2 sections. I really like this tip because when we're in class, we're trying to get down all the information that we think is important, especially for our exams or being able to, comprehend a concept and to be able to apply it later. If you split your notes into 2 sections, you are able to, jot down all the notes from your class during lecture or while you're reviewing your textbook. And then you're able to kind of go back on that opposite side of the page and say, you know what, let me just try to summarize this really fast. Like Kristen mentioned, if you can summarize something or teach something to somebody else, it's a good chance that you have enough of the concept or enough of the knowledge to be able to master, that concept or that subject. So definitely by splitting your notes into 2, you're kind of doing a call and reflect. So you're able to recall the information, reflect on it, and see if you can actually apply that in the future. The second tip is only highlight important material. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I even know what is important? For me personally, I used to highlight things that I felt I would have difficulty remembering. As Kristen mentioned, you start with the hardest concept or thing first, and then you kind of work your way backwards to what you feel is something that you'll be able to recall easily or an easier concept to comprehend. So that's kind of my tip, but everybody does it differently. Use a study guide. Oh my gosh, this one is huge. So even if your class doesn't have a study guide, that doesn't mean that you can't create your own. Using a study guide will help you, make sure that you're covering the most information that's going to be either on an exam or that you need to cover in an essay. And using the study guide, you're actually building out your own study schedule right then and there. As you're going through the chapters, it's likely that you are going to have to recall that information for the test. And so why not just start your studying right off the bat by using the study guide as either your note-taking, area, or being able to recall and reflect on the information. When you take that information, put it in your study guide, and then can be used to, quiz yourself at a later time. You can create flashcards out of it. Study guides are very useful as long as you put them to good use. Take bolded material seriously. I know this one was one of Austin's hugest tips that he gave in our previous midterm workshop. So Austin, feel free to chime in if you want, but taking bolded material seriously, this is information that the professor likely wants you to know. So making sure that you include that in your study guide, include that in your notes, and really understand that material so that way you're in a good spot for your exam. And then finally, study how you would take the exam. So as Kristen mentioned, if you have headphones in or if you have your phone, if there's distractions, it's likely that you're not studying in the type of environment that you'll take the test in. And so being able to truly sit down and study like you would be taking the test, you're preparing your mind and your body to be able to be in that environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about test anxiety. I know we've all been there. We'll get there. We have some tips and tricks for you, but this will allow you to kind of make sure that you're in the right place at the right time and getting used to that feeling. Now you might be asking, okay, these are really general tips. And Kristen mentioned, there's different study styles and learning styles. How do I accommodate my own style? So going to the next slide, we'll talk about, different tips and tricks that the SSS program has also recommended for your specific learning style. All right, so if you are a visual learner, we have a couple different recommendations for you, and you guys will get a copy of, these visuals as well after the presentation. So if you're a visual learner, creating visual concepts is going to be really important for you to connect what you're learning in class, that material, to being able to recall it on a test. So for example, being able to draw a picture out, or like Latricia said, actually having a script that you can follow for a specific sort of concept or material, it's really important so that way you can actually visualize it when you're, in that environment. As many of you mentioned too, flashcards, Quizlet, or even physical copies of the flashcards are really important because that is something that you can visually see and you can remember that as you're going through the cards. Personally, what I love to do, I think I'm a mixture of not like a visual and then like a hands-on, so maybe a kinesthetic, but I absolutely loved rewriting my notes over and over again. Maybe not the actual doing it part because it took a lot of time, but it really got the concepts into muscle memory. So when I was recalling the information on a test, I could, recall it really easily because I had wrote it over and over and over again in a separate notebook. Using visual recollection. So this is another really, really cool thing that you can do if you're a visual learner. So as you can see at the little part right here on the by the paw print, how many toes do dogs have? If you are asked this question on an exam, just draw a dog's foot. So if you have a concept and you can pair a visual thing with it, by visually thinking about the image or drawing the image on the test, you can recall that information a little bit easier. And as somebody mentioned before, color coding notes is super important. Got to have all them colors so that way we make sure that we're compartmentalizing. Now let's jump over to kinesthetic learners though. So as I mentioned, I'm a little bit of both a visual and a kinesthetic. So I see Latricia posted something in the chat, so I'm going to quickly read that because I think it's very relevant to what we're about to talk about. If the room in which you are going to take the test in is available during your study time, go to the room and sit while you study in the seat that you would normally take the test in. Positioning helps you with recall. So yes, 100%. And this is especially important for kinesthetic learners because you want to get your body used to being in that environment to do as best as you can. However, you can also make sure that you are picking the best, like position to study in. So some people, they like to lay on their bed. Some people like to sit in a beanbag. Some people like to be at an actual desk. So picking the best for you. I also was talking to a student in the SSS program, and they actually said their learning increased and their comprehension increased when they moved from being able to study on their bed to when they actually got a desk for their room. So it truly does make a difference. And as Kristen mentioned, teach what you learn. So if you're able to recall that information and present it to somebody else, chances are you're remembering it, and you can really, use that material to help further your understanding of it. Okay, so chewing gum. This one is also super important. I remember learning this when I was doing the ACT, like prepping for it, being able to chew gum because it keeps yourself alert. And you can chew a different color, or not a different color, chew a different flavor with, the different subjects that you have. Fidgeting isn't a bad thing. So making sure that you are moving around, you can use a stress ball, embrace exercise. Some people just need that mind break. And, you don't have to continuously study. As Kristen mentioned, you want to give yourself breaks. But some people like to, walk on a treadmill while they reread their notes or listen to an audiobook, things of that nature if you're a kinesthetic learner. And finally, embrace hands-on. So this was more my speed, right? So, building models, using a whiteboard and drawing stuff out or drawing out concepts is really important for you to make sure that you have that hands-on piece of things and you're actually like carrying out what you're doing while you're studying. If you can do that, then chances are you will most likely be more successful. Finally, we have our auditory learners, reading your notes out loud. Again, this was very successful, especially if you do it right before you go to sleep. Like that has to be the final thing you do. No scrolling, don't go take a shower. Like it has to be the last thing you do, because what happens is your mind actually takes your short-term memory and processes it into your long-term memory. And I guarantee you the next morning, if you quiz yourself on the same material that you either read your notes out loud or studied before bed, chances are you'll probably be able to recall it a little bit easier than you did the day before. During exams, reading the directions out loud when possible, or making sure that if you identify with a disability, make sure that you get those accommodations that you need, if that is something that you can do. So that way you can make sure that you are as successful as possible. As Latrice loves to do, either make a song or a skit out of your material. Also, as mentioned before, study how you would take the exam. So if you're not allowed to listen to music while you're taking the exam, do not study while listening to music either. And with permission, make sure to record your lectures so that way you can go back and get the material as it was directed towards you.
All right, these are excellent visuals. I love the connection of the study tips to the specific learning styles, and you guys will get a copy of these after this presentation. So thank you, Rachel. One last little study tip we wanted to talk about was the Pomodoro Technique. This is one that, quite a few people have heard of before, but it's really effective, so we just wanted to make sure we touched base on it. So what the Pomodoro Technique says is, first, you have to decide on the tasks that you need to do. So maybe you're like, okay, I have a history exam tomorrow. I need to study the Revolutionary War tonight. All right, so you set your task. Second, you set a timer to 25 minutes. Now this is very important, the timing. So research shows that it takes you 7 minutes to focus into studying. So this means if you're only studying for 10 minutes, 7 of those minutes, you're not even truly focused. So you want to make sure you pick a time slot that's long enough so you really get quality study time. At the same time, make sure that timer isn't longer than 45 minutes. Study shows also that your brain starts kind of fizzing out after that 45-minute mark. So pick somewhere between 25 to 45 minutes and set a timer to that time. Next, work on your task until that timer rings. Maybe you're doing some flashcards, some Quizlets. Who knows what you're doing? Follow your study technique that we talked about, the one that correlates to your learning strategy, and work all the way through that timer, no distractions. So before this process even begins, make sure you put your phone away. Like Rachel said, you want to be sitting in a study space that's kind of representative of how you're going to take the exam. So maybe that's at a desk. Maybe you could actually go to the lecture hall where you'll take the exam. That would be great. So make sure you're at a representative study environment. After the timer rings, take your well-deserved break. Take those 5 minutes to yourself. Maybe you pull up your phone and you go on Instagram for 5 minutes. Maybe you brought a book. Maybe you just rest your head for 5 minutes. Take your well-deserved break. But again, make sure it's not that long. We talked about it takes 7 minutes to focus in. So you don't want your break to exceed that 7-minute mark, or else you'll have to restart the process all over. So take your short little break.
Kristen, could I mention something?
Oh yeah, go for it. Jump in.
Oh, all right. So, because in my sororities chapter 5MU, we have a certain amount of study hours that we have to make every month. So all of us had to download the Flora app. It's kind of to keep us all, get out of there. Okay, there it is. It's kind of like to keep us focused in a way, so like we're able to set our timer for as long as I think 3 hours and as little as 5 minutes. So what I usually do, I set it for, I would say, half an hour to 40, like I would say a good half an hour to 45. 45 minutes. If you try to leave the app, it will ask you to go back to it right away. So this is another way. I was like, another way for not allow myself to get distracted. And you can also set a break timer for as little as 3 minutes and as long as 30.
That's wonderful. What's the app's name?
It is called, I just had it. Let me look it up on the App Store since I'm already here. It is called Flora Green Focus. It is on the App Store.
That is actually wonderful. I love how it actually, especially if phones are a big distraction for you, that's a great way to keep you focused. It will ask you to go back to your studying if you are in your study time, or it will set a little break timer, which is awesome. So thank you for sharing.
No problem.
Yeah, no, that's great. And if anyone else has any similar things, feel free to jump in. This is wonderful. I love it.
Actually, I have something really quick. And depending on the student, sometimes like the phone thing is great and like that's your go-to already, right? So use what's there. Sometimes like the phone is a distraction even if it's in the room. So I tell students like get a 99-cent kitchen timer at the dollar store and use that. And then you're not even tempted with the phone and see what works. Yeah, sometimes that's the key.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to play around with it. Maybe you try the app. If that's working for you, great. If not, yeah, go to the dollar store. If you have that, buy the 99 cents thing, give that a shot too. So there's so many different ways, and not a single one of them is right, It's all depending on you. Everyone could work. It's just you got to find what works for you, and that's fine. Excellent discussion, guys. I love it. All right, so the last step of the Pomodoro technique is after your break is to repeat the cycle. So whatever timer you set, maybe you did 25 minutes, repeat that.
Kristen?
Do it another 4 times.
Sorry to interrupt. On my screen, I still see the learning style study tips. I'm not sure if anyone else is the same or if it's on the wrong slide.
Well, I have the Pomodoro technique on mine. Can anyone else not see it?
I can't.
You can't?
Yeah, I think
might wanna
on
reset
mine,
the screen
on the
here.
learning style study tips.
Huh. It's on mine. This is weird. I've tried going back and forward again. Do you guys see it now?
No, it's still on the
So
same.
I probably say go ahead and exit out of
Yeah.
share screen for now, and then just go ahead and try turning it on again.
I didn't mean to do that. Oh, and now my computer's freezing.
Oh,
Rachel, can you try sharing it from your screen? Maybe That will work better. Come on.
So Rachel's also having some technical difficulties. She can't unmute herself right now. I could try
Oh.
presenting on my screen, see if that works.
Yeah, because it's not letting me even exit out right now. I don't know what you guys can see on my screen, but it's not letting me. No, not what I want.
Do you have a Windows on laptop, Kristen?
I have a HP Pavilion.
Okay. Yes, I'd probably say right click on your taskbar at the bottom, and then you can right click on that and then go to the task manager and you just end that process on whatever is trying not to respond to you.
My taskbar isn't showing up, which is the weirdest thing.
Jesus.
Am I unmuted?
Oh, you're unmuted.
Yes.
Oh yay. Okay, so I can't see anything, like literally nothing. My toolbar is gone. I can't even I can't see anything. I can't even see myself. I can only see Kristen and then the PowerPoint. But I think
And I'm having.
Rachel, do you have a Windows laptop as well?
yes, but if we end the call, if we end the processing, it's gonna end the call. So I don't want to do that necessarily.
Right.
And Justin, you're not able to share.
Because I think you guys are going to send us the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
later,
we'll definitely
I
send you the
think.
PowerPoint for
That's
sure.
why you guys have just been talking to us about it, since you guys can't exactly show it.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what's
I'm
going
so
on.
sorry about this, guys. I don't know what. We're all having technical issues at the same time.
Oh no, now I really broke it. Now I can't see a thing. I can't even see the PowerPoint anymore. Well, maybe I can try to go out, or one of us can go out and then come back in and see if it fixes.
Yeah, it's not letting me exit shared screen, and my taskbar has disappeared.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
I can see everybody, and I can see the learning style study tips that Austin has.
Oh, your taskbar, you said? So I think on your keyboard, if you have a Windows laptop, so you see like the Windows button between the Control and Alt, press that.
Okay. So what do I do after I have the
taskbar? It should pop up. Mine did.
Yeah, mine did too.
I'm gonna go out and come back in.
Okay.
Okay, Rach, go for it.
I'm so sorry for the technical difficulty, guys.
All right, it's not even letting me quit. All right, hold on. We're gonna try the task manager thing. Man, the playback on this is gonna be wild.
Yeah, that's right, because you're recording from yours,
Yep.
right?
All right, I'll be back. Okay, I can see everybody again.
Did you guys
Hello.
just get kicked out?
All right, let me see if I can present my screen now. We were finishing on this slide. Okay.
Okay, now, yep, so now it's just gonna be, I think, 2 separate recordings now because the previous one just stopped when you left, Rachel.
All right, no worries. Can everybody see that?
All right. Yeah.
Yep.
Kristen, what about you?
Yep, I got it up.
All right, cool. All right. So, Kristen, do you want to explain this really fast?
Yeah, I'll just go through a rundown because you guys couldn't see it. So this is the Pomodoro Technique. And what it is, it's a 5-step process. First, you got to decide the task that you're going to do. I think the example we used was I'm going to study maybe the dates of the Revolutionary War. And so you decide your task. Perfect. After you have your goal in mind, you set that timer. Like we said, there's a lot of ways you can do it. We had that great Flora app that came up. You could use just a regular digital timer, anything you want, but set that timer somewhere between 25 and 45 minutes. Next, you work nonstop, no distractions until that timer rings. This is your dedicated study time. Nothing else gets done but studying. On the 4th step, we talked about after that timer rings, you take your short little 5 to 7 minute break. This break allows your mind to rest, but it also doesn't, it shouldn't be so long that you get out of your study session. Like we said, it takes that 7 minutes to focus in, so your break shouldn't be more than 7 minutes. Lastly, step 5 is to repeat the cycle. So if you decided to study for 25 minutes, you're going to do this 3 more times. And so this is repetition, right? You're going between studying, breaks, studying, breaks. We said that your brain is a muscle. You can think of this as a workout. You're going to do reps, you're going to study for your session, then you're going to take your break. And it's through these sessions that you're going to build your muscle and ultimately commit things to your long-term memory. So this was a little bit overview. I know we kind of went over it twice, but I think we got the gist of it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we also, now that we've covered, study tips, we also wanted to link you guys with very helpful campus resources. So where can you go for help? We have outlined a ton of different resources that we have on our campus that are all completely free. And I'm just going to go ahead and read them on the screen here. But while I am doing that, go ahead and drop in the chat if you've used any of these helpful resources. Which one was it and why did you find it helpful? So we have the Writing Learning Center. So the Writing Center, which is, there's a lot of locations on our campus. The main one is in Castle and I believe the library. But like I said, there are more throughout the campus. You can make an appointment with them and they can help review your essays, writing, samples, cover letters, resumes, anything of that nature. We also have the Science Learning Center. Tutoring services. So if you need a tutor of any sort, you can get a consultation through the tutoring services and they will help pair you with somebody that you will be helped by. Professor's office hours, definitely making sure to, visit your professor's office hours. They are human too. They understand that, students have questions. So these are specifically designed for you to take your questions to and get those answers. Supplemental instruction sessions. If you guys have never heard of an SI session, I highly recommend it. All my students know I highly recommend it. I tell you my horror story of my science classics experiences. And after I went to SI, it was just a world of difference. Austin is also an SI leader, so he can also tell you a little bit more about it from his perspective too. But we highly recommend going to your SI sessions for your courses. We have PALS, being able to go to PALS and get that one-on-one support from them. And again, student support services, very similar. We have our advising, tutor, mentoring. So if you guys need that one-on-one support, we definitely got your back. The Math Learning Center, they have online and in-person appointments. And I think it's pretty cool because even if you just have a simple question, you can just drop by and they'll make sure that they have a tutor in the office for you dedicated to your specific subject. And teaching assistants, any TAs or any, class people that work with your one-on-one with your professor to be able to answer those questions. And I believe Kristen also dropped in the chat a link that all of these resources are hyperlinked to. So make sure you check that out to get more information about these one-on-one services. And I see a couple people popped in the chat too that said tutoring services. I've used the Writing Center and of course SSS. Both are always helpful. We appreciate you. I've used the tutoring services, student support services, and professor's office hours. Love to hear it. Definitely continue on that great path because utilizing your support system is what's going to get you even further in life. So what we also wanted to highlight though is different university offices that could also help. They might not be, academic tutoring based, but they definitely will come in handy when it concerns your academic career. So the first one I want to highlight is disability services. As I mentioned earlier, we do have resources on our campus to make sure that you are as successful as possible. And especially when considering if a student has a disability, we want to make sure that you are accompanied with accommodations to make sure that you have that level playing field to be able to do as well as you possibly can. And so we've linked not only their email, but also their phone number for you to get connected if you are not already connected with disability services. Judy is fantastic. She'll do your consultation or your kind of your first appointment to get at least accommodated with their office. So if you are kind of on the fence about reaching out to them, I would say just do it. It can only help you. It will not hurt you. CAPS, our counseling and psychological services. Our mental health and well-being is very important, especially when it comes to, being in school and juggling so many different things, whether you're first generation, continuing generation. There's a lot that you guys have to balance, whether it be school, work, family responsibilities. I mean, if you're in SSS, we talk about those different barriers that you might face. And sometimes this can lead to stress. And so being able to, check in with your mental health and wellness is very important. And what better way to do that with CAPS, because they have a direct affiliation with the school, and so they know what students are going through. They have those resources to be able to provide them to you, so that way you can learn to kind of be able to adjust to that and be as successful as you can be. So again, got their email and their phone number on there. And again, if you're on the fence, I say do it. There's nothing to lose. So definitely make sure that you connect with them. And also, last but not least, definitely your academic advisors, especially in your academic unit, because advising is free on our campus, and they're going to provide that guidance for you to make sure that you're on the right academic path, taking those right classes. And sometimes they're even alum, or I mean they've gone through college themselves too, so they might have different study tips and tricks to help you be as successful as possible as well.
All right, so some great points, Rachel. I especially we're talking about academic success, but a lot of those things that determine whether you're academically successful go on in your everyday life. So take advantage of resources like CAPS to help deal with the issues you may be experiencing there. All right, so moving on, we're going to be talking about some testing days, do's and don'ts. All right, so first, some do's. These are things you want to do the day of the test or the days leading up to the test. Get plenty of sleep the night before. Get that 8+ hours. Research shows that if you're going to pull an all-nighter, you actually want to do it 2 days before the test. You need that full 8 hours of sleep, so you'll be doing more harm than good by cramming that last minute. Eat a healthy meal and hydrate. This is very important. You want to make sure you have all of the nutrients you need to help your brain fire. You also want to prep all the materials you'll need the night before. I talked about how I have a chem exam tomorrow. I already got my calculator, I got my pens and my pencils and my pencil case, and I have my bag all ready and packed to go. So eliminate that extra stressor by having it all prepped to go beforehand. If this is applicable to your exam, double check its location. Sometimes professors move locations for exams, so make sure you check that out, check the syllabus. And then especially look at the time. Sometimes I know classes that are normally Monday, Wednesdays, but all the exams are on a Friday. So make sure you know when your test is, both date, time, and location. And make sure you leave your house with plenty of time to get there. And then I see Rachel is also saying that SSS has Blue Book, Scantrons, and so on. So yes, make sure you have all those materials that you need. Your professor may tell you in the syllabus that you need a Blue Book or a Scantron, but they won't necessarily remind you. So double check these things, and we have these resources for you on campus. And lastly, we talked about it a lot. Take those short study breaks. Your brain is a muscle. Don't overwork it right before a test, or else it's going to be exhausted when you take the test. Some things to not do, these are mainly involving cramming, right? This involves pulling an all-nighter the night before the test. If you stay up till 2 a.m. and then you have an exam at 8 a.m., your brain's not going to have enough sleep to function. And it won't have gotten the sleep that helps you process the studying into your long-term memory, so it won't do you any good. This also goes with studying for long periods of time. So we talked about that 45-minute mark is about as long as you want a study session to be. Make sure you're not studying an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours plus in a row. Take your breaks when you need them. Also, don't procrastinate. That's easier said than done. Create a schedule at the beginning of the semester. Maybe you're going to study 3 days a week. Create that schedule, stick to it, study throughout the semester, not just last minute, and it will all be a lot easier. Don't bring distractions. We talked about the phone being a big one. There's other things too. I know your puppy's adorable. Can't study with that. So make sure you're distraction free when you're studying for the exams. And the most important thing is don't second guess yourself. You got this. You studied, you prepared, trust your first answer. You are 100% going to rock this. And I'm going to leave it off to Austin, I believe, to talk about testing anxiety.
All right, thank you. Yep, so another big part of the test taking process that a lot of people experience, but maybe not talk about so much, is test anxiety. So that feeling that you get when you're anxious for a test or have that feeling in your gut that you're maybe going to fail, not do so well, that all can be attributed to test anxiety. So on this slide, as was before, if you want to unmute or use the chat, or you can use the little annotate button and write on the slide. Have you ever experienced test anxiety, and what does it look like for you? And so I'll give an example for myself. I tend to eat a lot before a test, and during the test, I tend to bounce my leg whenever I get anxious. And so I need to stop moving my leg and concentrate in order to think clearly. So that's what it looks like for me. I have some in the chat here. Rachel, second guessing or not reading the question fully. I've done that. Don't read the directions fully either, or just second guessing your answer that was correct the first time and then you get it wrong. Ellie said, get nervous for exams, you get cold. That's a big one. I've heard a lot of people say that. They just feel really chilly, really cold. I experienced the same kind of thing. Rachel says she experienced the same kind of thing. That's very common across the board. That's another symptom of test anxiety. Brain goes blank, second guessing yourself. Yep. So, and that can really be costly in exams if you keep second guessing yourself. And if your first answer was right the whole time, it's gonna maybe cost you a couple points. So that's another big one. Self-doubt. Yep, I feel like that I can relate to as well. You doubt how well you're gonna do the exam, forgetfulness. And so a lot of these things all attribute to once you are in the room taking the test, I think a lot of people, they just blank or they panic, they go into panic mode, they doubt themselves, and then they don't do too well. So we're going to go in depth about how to kind of overcome that, how to cope with that, and how to do well on tests, even if you do have test anxiety. What can you do?
Thank you, Austin. So when kind of thinking about how to cope with test anxiety, we're like, who are the experts to be able to help us with this? And so we actually reached out to CAPS, and they were able to provide us with some resources for you guys. And like I said, this presentation will be sent to you and the recording will be sent to you after the event. But we reached out to them and they gave us some resources to use in order to kind of cope with test anxiety. And obviously you can't change it overnight. Like these things you're going to have to do with practice and you'll get better and better at it. And so we'll just kind of go through these together and just have a discussion about, have you done these things? Do they work? Do they not work? So feel free to, pop things in the chat, your opinions or things that you have done to overcome test anxiety. The first one is to get a good night's sleep and do something relaxing a day before and the day of the test. So whether it be taking a walk, going on exercise, doing yoga, listening to some music before, some calming music, obviously not while you're studying, but doing something that you really enjoy before your test to kind of reduce your nerves. Has anybody done anything like that? And if so, did it work?
I usually end up reading, because usually I always because I have I literally have my own political autobiography library at home, but it's mainly, and I usually read one of those chapters in one of my books in the meantime, but it's really Kamala Harris's book, The Truth We Hold, that I usually read, and I wear my pearls while doing it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, definitely. Not only the act of doing something that you really enjoy, but also feeling good and dressing up. I know some people, they will purposely dress up for whatever they're doing if they're nervous about something because it makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel a little bit more powerful. So definitely, I love that. Also, Kristen said, I try to avoid negative thoughts, like not telling myself that I'm going to fail, keep it positive. I love that. Allie said, on the day of the exam, I would never study additionally because it would just make me more nervous. Truth. She said, I would just trust in my previous studying. And you know what? I'm going to call her out. My sister, Kayla, some of you guys know her. She's a student at UM-Dearborn too. She had her first, I think it was like one of her chemistry exams for the semester, either last week or the week before that. And I told her, I was like, you put in so much time in studying and to make sure that you feel, very confident going in. Some people will say do power poses before the exam too. So like, if you don't know what a power pose is, it's essentially like having your body in a very positive, very confident position. So like Superman, that's a power pose. Being able to do like this, that's a power pose. They taught us that in like before the ACT. So being able to actually move your body in a way that is going to promote, confidence and well thoughts. So I love that. The second one is maintaining a positive attitude before and during the test. Definitely, like I mentioned with my sister, I was like, hey, you got to have confidence in yourself because you spent a lot of time on this. It's not like you just, study your notes for 2 minutes and then went in and took the exam. No, you dedicated time, you put in effort. So walk in very confident because you put in a lot of time and effort into this. Arrive at the exam location early. Yes. Oh my gosh. Arriving early, it's going to take away some of your test anxiety because you know that you're in the right spot. You have all your stuff ready. So as Kristen mentioned, she has all her stuff ready to go. Her calculator is charged. It has full batteries. It's not going to die on her. She's got several pencils and pens. So making sure you arrive early and have all your materials. Ellen put in the chat, I don't answer my phone. I send out a text to family and friends letting them know I'm on lockdown for 2-day test time. I love that. Practice meditation. Communication is huge too, and especially with your support system because they can also help lift you up. If they don't know what you're experiencing, they won't know how to support you. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that, Ellen. Allie said, study shows that reminding yourself of your values before taking an exam will also help you perform better too. I love that. Yes. And also your why. I think your why would matter too. The fourth one, so peruse and scan the test before to get an overview of what to expect. Now this one I highly relate to because, and let me know if you guys are the same way. Whenever I got a test, I had the first page and then like I would try to focus on the first question, but then my eyes would kept skipping to the next one and then skipping to the next one because I didn't know like what was going to be on the test. So I feel like it's that test anxiety when you first get it. I think looking over the exam, it'll allow you to not only get over that initial like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's coming next, but it'll also allow you, like Kristen said, you'll know where the harder parts are in the exam based on the material that you have studied for. So you can focus a little bit, more on the easier questions or more on the harder questions and kind of navigate the test from there. Focus on simpler questions first. Yep, as we just mentioned, peruse through the exam, see what you can get done first that you're absolutely confident with, and then go back and worry on the hard parts. And finally, do not worry about if others finish first. You work at your own pace. So how are we feeling about these? Do you guys do any of these help you? Are any of these new and you want to try them? Kind of what are our thoughts?
I thought the last point was really a great one and I wanted to add on to it. Don't worry if other people finish first. If your exam's an hour and a half, just because someone else starts turning it in an hour doesn't mean you have to. Take that full time. Sometimes professors even let you go over it. Take all the time you need. Really just be yourself in that.
Kristen, you were right about that because when I took women's and gender studies class, gender roles, not this past summer, but summer of last year. I think I had 15 quizzes, but all of them 15 quizzes overall, but all of them I had half an hour each to do them all. So and they were online too. So I'm like, if you had 30, so if you have a 30-minute time limit, use it all. If you got a 3-hour time limit, use it. 3-hour time limit, use it all. Use it all and go through every single question. Do not leave any of them blank. Just try something.
I love it. That is great advice. And it's totally true. Use all the time you have.
And another thing too, I would also, and then also another thing that I do too, I will literally text my family members, like unless it's an absolute emergency, don't call me between this time and that time. Because usually my phone is literally on vibrate once I get into the room. And that's also kind of why I got my watch too. So, because my iPhone and my watch are connected. So if someone calls me, I'll be able to tell without having to look at my phone in the process.
Eliminate those distractions in the test. No, it's a great one. All right, I think Allie also said, you know, take that deep breath if you need to. Don't start panicking. It is easy to start panicking. If you need to, take a minute during the test and just breathe. That is okay. Then you can refocus on the test, get the oxygen. I like it.
All right. I can't unmute.
Oh, we hear you.
You can? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it says I'm muted. I'm
Nope,
like,
nope,
everything's
you're
following.
good.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna be unmuted for the rest of the time. So, all right, so we only have a couple minutes left. So post-testing reflection, I'm gonna let Kristen go ahead and take that over, and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap up.
Oh, yeah. Did you change the slide?
Oh, is it broken again?
Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? I could just talk about this one. I got
Just
this.
talk about it.
Yep.
So funny. You're gonna send it to
We'll
us
send you
later.
guys the PowerPoint. So you're taking the test, you're done, right? Nope. There's still things you can do to help improve your future test taking, and that is reflecting on your test. Specifically, metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. So you can take your test and reflect on it and see, what areas did I really struggle in? What areas did I really do well in? And this can help you learn your learning style for that class and adapt and change it to basically the results you're getting in. You're like, oh, I did really bad in this area. I should focus on that next time. Or rather, maybe the opposite, like, I did amazing here. That is awesome. I'm doing great. So using that, and we actually had a statistic, is that people who reflect on their test and then change their learning strategies and their study styles based on that tend to perform a third of a letter grade higher than individuals who don't. So if you are normally a C student, that can become a C plus. So just by taking the time, the half hour to reflect on your test, see where you did poorly, see where you did well, and using that knowledge, you can improve your future learning, which is definitely something worth doing. And it helps because normally end of the semester, you're going to need to review all the material anyways. So why don't you just break it up, do it as you get them. And I think at that, we're ready to wrap it up. We have a little check-in.
We do.
Wait, let me pull it up on my computer. So we just had some kind of sample questions for you guys. Mainly, did you guys find this presentation helpful? Some takeaways you have, any questions you still have too. Like, this is a conversation. If you still have questions, lay it on us. We are here for you guys. What was probably the most interesting or helpful part for you guys? And again, you can throw it in the chat too. We don't have to unmute here. Thank you, Ellen. Very nice. All right. Well, we're going to hang around here if you guys have questions. We love having you. We hope to see you guys in the future. And again, if you ever need anything, reach out to SSS or to PALS, and we are here to help you guys. So good luck on your midterms. You've all got this. Stay confident. It's yours.
Yes. So you guys will be getting a recording link from me. It'll go to a Google Drive where you'll see not only the two separate recordings now, but also the links that Cap shared with us too. They are documents, so they'll both live in the Google Drive link that I'll be sending. If you have any questions or if you're interested in learning more about SSS, because I know we have a couple non-SSS people in the Zoom call here today, feel free to respond back to my email with any questions that you might have, or if you are interested in joining SSS. We are a federally funded grant program that brings different resources and services to you guys as students. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we can feel free to hang out if you guys have questions or if you have anything to talk about.